Hey, how's everyone doing? Joe Menza here with another video. This one here is from my Artscape review, and this is the full version of the one that I did with all the colors in it, and I thought you'd be interested in seeing the full video with a little voiceover of everything that I did. This is 11 by 14 Fabriano Studio. And I'm using the colors from that palette. Maybe you got a set of colors like this that, they got a lot of bright, vivid colors you don't use all the time. I started off with their yellow. It's like a gamboge. And now I'm using like a crimson red. And then I used like a violet color here. They have a violet and a mauve in that set. But you can make a purple if you don't have it. You can use alizarin and ultramarine and you can come up with a purple like this. So now I'm using, they have an orange red and then a crimson. And I'm just kind of watering that down a little bit, coming back with the orange red. And come out with like a vibrant sunset here. Again with the orange red. So yeah, if you have one of those sets that you bought, or maybe you have some paints you don't use all the time because you're using more of a, one of those store-bought sets, they have a lot of similar colors like this in here that you don't use for landscapes every day. So I'm just putting a little purple in the top of the sky. You ever notice when you get those sunsets with the red showing toward the bottom, you get the sky starts to look kind of purpley. So this is more of a fantasy type, picture. It's good to stretch out with different colors sometimes and just kind of go a totally different direction. Me, I like to do a little bit more realistic, like what it actually looks like. But sometimes it's fun to do something that's a little more, a little more vibrant, a little more colors, and sometimes you learn something from that. So again, working with the purples and the reds in this set. Trying to leave a little bit open in the middle. And I'll probably use some of the titanium white in the sky too, just to get some cloud cover. So just kind of working in that purple, adding a little blue, darkening it up a little bit. Just until I'm happy with the pattern that I have. I'm giving it a little spray now just to keep it open. So a lot of times I like to blend these colors and use a soft brush. I have a whole set of these sort of Chinese calligraphy-ish type brushes. And they all got natural hair on them. This one here is nice and soft, almost kind of like a round brush. So I'm just kind of blending that in together while it's still wet. It has a way of softening up the sky when you blend them. So here now I'll start working on the foreground part. Have a little water in the middle and we'll do some trees along the side. Again, working with the purple and the mauve. And the orange red. One thing about Fabriano Studio paper is that the water tends to lay on top. It's almost like hot press, but it isn't. It's cold press, but it gives you a little more working time. as opposed to your cotton papers, which tend to absorb fairly quickly. So now I'm going to give it a quick dry. I'm happy with where I'm at the moment, so I don't want to disturb that too much anymore. We'll give it a quick dry with the hair dryer. I'm just going to dab in a little bit here with the... There was something there I didn't care for, so... Just kind of dabbing in with the tissue. I'm just coming back with the fan brush and accenting a little bit more with that orange red, just to get some brightness up where the sun would be. It's a nice color, this orange red. Again, that's from the myartscape.org palette. A little bit of blending again. I'm still enjoying those paints. $20 I looked at they cost. And they're a nice set for the beginner, for anyone really. Especially beginner though, where you don't know, if you're gonna stick with a particular medium. Again, just doing the blending here till we have something I can live with or be happy with. As long as it's wet, you can fool around with it. So now here's something a little different I've been fooling around with. I've been taking a tissue and dabbing it into the fresh paint, and then taking that tissue and dabbing it onto the paper for a different kind of you get heavier paint, and you get an interesting pattern depending on how you press the tissue against the paper. It's kind of interesting, something different from a brush. You get a little bit of texture. A lot of times we'll dab the tissue into the paint and lift. In this case, instead of lifting, we're applying the paint with the tissue. So I thought this was an interesting approach. And you can do this anywhere in the painting with any color, and you can do it for, you could do it for foregrounds or really anything. But for clouds with white, it has an interesting pattern, and it puts enough white on there that it stays bright enough to, not fade too far back into the paper. Now here I'm just giving a quick little spray. So yeah, give it a try. Take your tissue, wrinkle it up, dip it into the paint, and just kind of press it onto the paper wherever you want to use it. And if it gets too heavy, just give it a little spray with your spray bottle and let it run. I'm just kind of blending it a little bit here with the brush. Very softly, pulling it down, pulling it up, whatever. Some of this is going to be covered by trees, so I'm not too worried about it, but I thought I'd show you one of the things that I've been trying. I hope everyone is doing well with their painting. I also just put up a new Patreon video. I'll have it in my links to my Patreon channel. Got a few patrons over there. I always appreciate the support. A little bit more dabbing. I still want that purple to show through. And now we'll do a little bit more foreground work, coming back to that purple again, that violet color. As I said, maybe someone bought you a set of paints, saw that you were getting into the art, and they bought you one of those sets with, 50 tubes of paint in there. There's a lot of weird colors in there you might not use for a landscape, but, go ahead and use them and just, use some even unrealistic colors. And sometimes you'll surprise yourself. You learn something, Even myself here in doing this one, it showed me, hey, I need to stretch out a little bit more. I need to do some things that are a little outside my lane, So just working on this foreground. Again, doing a little more blending. I mean, even without adding any more elements, I think it actually looks pretty neat right now. You could leave it like this. I did a similar one in which I did a sunset. It actually sold. It was pretty neat. Didn't look that far off from this. People like sunsets, if you're looking to sell your art, it's a popular subject. Sunsets, barns. There's a few things that people are into out there. Just carefully working and blending this foreground until I get something. A lot of times when I'm making things up as I go, I'll just splash in some paint, throw some paint around, see where it lands, and then from there I'll say, okay, that looks pretty good. I like that little bit of paint. And then I'll throw something else. Look good with a tree there, or it will, maybe I could use this there and build on top of that. Be spontaneous, have fun with it. And dabbing a little bit out with the tissue. The tissue and the spray bottle have become two tools in my arsenal that I use almost every painting now. And you can see here in the clouds, it's nice because you've got a little bit of purple between those clouds. They look like they're rolling clouds. The tissue you can dab out, you can create textures, you can now, as I've showed you, put paint on the paper. No one ever said we only had to use brushes to apply paint. So I've added a little bit more of that gamboge into the middle here to create a little bit of sunlight. Give it a little spray, let it run a little bit. It's exciting when the paint runs, really. Using my long fan brush. I found these smaller fan brushes at was it Hobby Lobby? It was either Hobby, I think it was Hobby Lobby, I believe. And so I bought a few of these. I got some longer handle brushes. And my Artscape, they sent me some brushes too. I'll be using those on my acrylic review video that'll be coming up possibly next week. A little bit of a spray. And just cleaning things up a little bit with the tissue. So I've got that orange and that gamboge in the bottom as a little bit of reflection off the water. While that's drying, I'm going to take a little more purple and just define between these clouds a little bit more. Just create a little bit more shadow. Almost kind of dry brushing it in a little bit. It's still damp, so I could do a little bit of blending. Like I say, I do all this work and then I put in trees and I end up blocking out a part of it, but it's still back there. Still part of the backstory. Now there's a light yellow in here, and I'm with a little bit of white creating a little light. If you've ever seen the clouds in a sky like this, they ever really looked at them, they have a little yellow reflective quality off the bottom of them. Sometimes you can't resist going back to something. You know what? This could use a little something here. And you end up going back to where you never thought you'd go back before. Let's zoom in a little bit here. You can really see what we got going on. It's hard for me to get this angle without the camera being in my way. Someone was asking me how much did I angle do I have my easel at, and it's almost straight up and down without falling over. I mean, it's a 90%, 95% angle, and it's just the way I've become accustomed to paint. So now I'm going to start working in some land masses in here. Again, using the purple. I really want to utilize these other colors that were in the palette. You know, we get accustomed to using 6 or 7 certain colors, and that's great in the beginning. But if you're ever doing something like this, or maybe you're doing flowers or, you know, something like that, you can utilize the other colors in a set like this. And sometimes they're good mixers too. I mean, I found that you mix the purple in with other stuff, and sometimes you can go right in with a dark purple over something, and it will, because watercolors are transparent, it doesn't even look like purple. It just gives you a darker, it gets you more of the way there. How can I say, where you would mix maybe like a purple. You already have the purple, and then you can just use that and make it even darker. So it puts you like 50% of the way there because you already have that color. Giving it a little spray, letting that run down a little bit. So in this set, there's a little bit of green. There's like 4 greens, sap green being one of them. I figure I'll just kind of use those up, and I'll build on that and see where that goes. It's not something I do. I don't use pre-made greens, but what the heck, you know, maybe we'll learn something. And I'm going to put in a tree here. I'm using their burnt umber mixed with a little blue and whatever else just happened to be on my brush at the time. And sort of dabbing that in to anchor that to the bottom, anchor the tree to the bottom. Give me a little grass around the tree. I'm just trying to get those trees a little bit darker to offset again in the background. And just dabbing into some different colors just to see what happens. There's get some red on my brush. It's kind of a weird look there, but it could be flowers or something. Just decided to go with, hey, you know, let's see what happens. That's sitting down and, you know, just taking paint and making shapes and colors is a valuable learning tool. Just experiment and play and have fun. Don't think you have to have a perfect painting at the end. It's all part of your education. The best education you can have is experimentation and just let's see what happens. And just working on that land mass again. If you don't like something, change it, dab it, spray it. You may not like everything that I do here. Change it, do something different, vary it up. At the end, when, you know, you say, oh, that was fun, you know, that's the goal. This method is about having fun, not about, you know, becoming a professional painter, although you could. It's not about winning a contest. This is you painting for yourself and having fun, especially during these times that we're in. It's hard to take your mind off of all the stuff that's going on. So I'm taking my rigger brush and I'm just making some branches for the trees. Same colors as the trees. Burnt umber and blue. Burnt umber and blue, and even you add a little red or even purple to it, actually makes a darker tree color. Like I say, you might find some old tubes of paint that you had that were colors you didn't expect to use. Use them. See what happens. Now come back to the fan brush. The fan brush has become one of my more go-to brushes. I'll tell you why, because it has a certain randomness about it, especially the stiffer fan brushes, like the real soft ones, not so much. It's those don't really have the same properties, but the fan brushes that have, they're very, very coarse. You can really control those well. I mean, I probably should one day do a whole painting with just fan brushes, but it's kind of silly because I like to do the initial washes with, you know, a larger brush. But I do quite a bit with the fan brush at this point, you know, trees, and it's a very random brush. Makes good grass too. It's kind of like a small hake in a way, in its own way. So now we'll come in with the fun card and we'll chisel in a few rocks. Just very quickly make some rocks around the base and then anchor those down with some darker colors. And I bet some of you were wondering, how is this going to turn into anything? But as you can see, we're getting there. It's our fantasy forest sunset, maybe. I don't know. Fantasy river sunset. Another thing you could do, I just thought of, is you could do still life, of course. You could do grapes and bowls of fruit and things with these other colors. I should do that myself one day, just for fun. Now I'm taking my fan brush and I'm creating a little more layers of trees in the background. You know, that's what I do. I look at it and I say, oh, what else could I use here? What would enhance this painting a little bit more? And see that little bit of white in the back. It worked out nicely because it's, you know, kind of like the sun is almost gone. So this is the point, and I've said this in other videos, this is where I kind of prop up the elements that I already have. It's fairly done, but at this point, we can look at it and go, okay, we've got most of the elements laid in. So now what can we do to take and give our supporting characters now, bring in our supporting cast, you know, enhance those things, make them stand out maybe a little bit more, create a little bit more contrast, you know, make things a little bit darker. Layer things, you know, if you have some distant trees, you can put some darker over the top. Same thing with the trees. I've added a little bit more darker shade to this now. Actually mixed in a little bit of the purple to kind of keep in that theme. And this tree to the left in the video, it's just a little bit of a glare. It looks a little lighter than it should. I just want these trees to stand out a little bit more. They look a little faded. And while I have that color on, I'm just gonna do a little leaf work with the fan brush. Just kind of dancing in a few leaves. Darker against the background. You can see I've covered up a lot of that sky work, you know, which makes you feel like, what did I do all that work for? But it is back there. And it does happen. I mean, you know, don't get too attached to anything you've done, because sometimes it's just better to go over something or, you know, improve upon something. And you can see these trees are, you know, here. Let's put the mat over the top, and get sort of an idea. You notice as soon as I put that on, it makes everything look kind of darker, and just kind of give an idea. Sometimes I'll do this. I'll throw the mat on and I'll paint with the mat on there. Use a mat, an old mat, maybe you already kind of messed up, but keep one laying around that you can throw on over the top, and then I'll paint. Look at it without the mat. You know, walk to the back of the room, look at it, walk a few feet away from the painting. There was an artist I read about, I think it was Seago, that they said the part of his carpet was worn out from walking back and forth across the room. Not sure if that was him or not, but it was an artist, famous artist. So you can see now I'm laying in. Look at that. That does make a difference. Laying in some darker trees in the background really pushes that sort of water area. It makes it look that much lighter. And just putting that mat over the top makes everything look a little bit darker. See how that one little thing can really make a difference. See, now by putting these little darker trees right along where that sun is, it just makes it pop. Again, taking advantage of the randomness of the fan brush and the size of it. I've got like 3 sizes of fan brushes. Again, just darkening these trees a little bit. I mean, it does have a little bit of a cartoonish look to it. You know, sometimes that's how watercolors are, but, you know, some people like some different styles, so it's good to try some different things. Again, just darkening things, coming back. This set has a little black in it, so I've probably added a little bit of that. But you got to be careful with that. I just really framed out that sun in the background. I don't know if the yellow is aligned properly, but I suppose it's fine. I mean, like I said, things look better sometimes wrong than right. Probably would have been better with the yellow just above the sun, but that's how it worked out. That's how we'll accept the hand of fate. Also, too, it's good to have the matte so you can kind of get an idea of what the edges look like. So when someone else or yourself frames the painting, you get an idea of what to expect. So now we're back to without the matte. Taking that little blending brush and trying to use just some different patterns. One of these days I got to show you this set that I got. I'm keeping it on my desk. It's almost more of a decoration than anything, but it's got like 20-something brushes of these sort of Chinese calligraphy brushes. Came in this really nice box. And now I'm utilizing the card and creating some tree bark. Since I've made that darker, now look at, see that underneath, how that shows through, and it looks like the light is bouncing off the tree. Isn't that nice? Isn't that a nice effect? Instant tree bark. I enjoy that quite a bit. I never get tired of scraping. I really don't. It's such a neat thing. You don't want to overdo it, but it makes me happy. And I say do what makes you happy. At the end of the day, when you show this to anyone outside of the painting hobby, pursuit, is not going to know how you did that. It's your own little secret magic trick. Again, just shoring up a few things. And I do like these paints. I think it works out to 80 cents a tube on these paints, maybe 80 cents to $1. I'm not, depending on if they're on sale or however they are. Definitely worthwhile to play with. So on the bottom here on the water, I've put a little bit of titanium white. I kind of like the effect that it has. And this titanium white in this My Artscape set is pretty strong stuff, so it'll tend to hold up. Finally, just some small details, some dark little shadows at the bottom of the tree base. You know, look back at things as you've gone across, you're doing your painting for 20 or 30 minutes. Things are going to dry, so this is your chance to, look it over. And there's nothing wrong with putting something to the side and coming back even the next day. There's no law against, hey, you got to finish this now. This has to be done. Put it down, put it away. The next day, come at it with a fresh set of eyes, and see if there's anything that you can do to it. I'm adding just a little bit more red into the sky area, just kind of dry brushing that in a little bit. Typically, going over skies and stuff is kind of a no-no, but I found ways that work for me, so, You can always give it a little spray. I find that spraying helps kind of break things up a little bit. Gives things a little bit too more of a random look. So what do you think of this painting? Is this something you'd like to see? Me doing some more reaching out, different stuff with colors? Let me know. Leave me some comments below. I enjoyed doing it. I think this one turned out pretty well. And if you liked it and you want to see some different stuff like that, I'll do some more. I'll use some different colors and try to come up with some other things. Maybe some things will work and maybe they won't. But we'll find out together, and we'll learn together, and we'll keep on encouraging one another to keep pushing forward, especially in this crazy world. We need something to take our mind off of things that are going on. So I'm adding a little bit more darker leaves just to sort of pop out the others, make the others pop out a little bit. If I go too dark, I'll give it a little bit of a spray. Tap at it with give it a little tap with the paper towel. Don't be afraid to try things. There's a lot of paper out there in this world for us to paint on. So we're getting close to the end here. And sometimes, of course, you got to tell yourself when to stop. So that's what I think I'll do now. Just kind of fixing this little branch here that I think I might have messed up. Just putting a little bit of white in there. And let's get a final look at it in its matte. And we'll call this one done. What are we at? Probably about 35, 40 minutes or so. That's quite long enough. So here we are in the matte, a little bit on the dark side. Let's get a little bit more light on it. There it is. Thanks for watching, everybody.